الله عليه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. أما بعد سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. Over the few, since we started the discussion on Surah At-Tawba, we've only managed to so far reach on verse number 3 yet. And even in verse 3, most of the discussions that have been taking place over the few days is about bari'um min al-mushrikeen, that the immunity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's immune from the mushrikeens. And yesterday, in depth of the discussion, we started the subject matter that shirk, the formation of shirk in itself. Now, if we try to, as we hold this tendency that just to get the glimpse of shirks and the meaning of shirk, to attribute something with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the literal meaning of shirk, ishrak billah. And ishrak billah, the other point that we can deduce from here is that in the modern times we have, well, if we go back to the historical things of the nature of all the Anbiya alayhim salatu wassalam and all the prophets that they came, in their times basically the mushrikeens were those that were actually holding other gods and goddesses, any form of creation. Like in the time of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, chapter 7, and in depth that his nation, basically they were forming and they were creating their own idols, and not that his own father was actually manufacturing the idols. So those were the physical form of shirks that were easily could be perceived. Somebody makes an idol, you say, look, don't do shirk. Very easy to understand, that's an idol, that's a stone, don't take it as that. But even in that it says, it's such a disease that once embedded inside the mind and the heart. Just imagine how strongly it was embedded in the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Qurayshis. And at the same time, on the neighboring side, Iran, these people were Zoroastrians. And still today, Zoroastrians, they do exist as well. Majus, people that worship fire. Then other forms of worships, you know, taking these things like the Hindus, taking the statues and the idols in their respective names, and specifically the cow worship. So you and I would be able to understand, just like, because it says, أَفَمَنْ شَرَحَ اللَّهُ صَدْرَهُ لِلْإِسْلَامِ فَهُوَ عَلَى نُورٍ مِّن رَبِّهِ. If the glowing light, let's take it first from the birth of a child. كُلُّ مَوْلُودٍ يُولَدُ عَلَى الْفِطْرَةِ. That every child is born on the nature of Islam. That illuminous light of Tawheed is within every human soul. And to the extent, the heartbeat of the human being, it takes two forms. One beat, there's a compression in which there's an expansion, and there's a compression. That's what we get. When they put the heart machine and all this equipment, you will see the radar that works on the thing, it only has two. It goes up and it goes down, it goes up and down, it goes up and down. Once it finishes, you get a straight line, because there's no contraption left. And there's only two contraption, expansion and contraption. It goes in, out. And it's actually beating on two things, Allah and who. Because it's two things, Allah and who. So that's what it's doing. But the thing is, when the heart, that's why it says, أَلَا إِنَّ فِي الْجَسَدِ لَمُضْغَةٌ إِذَا صَلُحَتْ. The heart, when it penetrates that light inside it, that's when the heart accepts the recognition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the most difficult thing. It says to take out the filth from the heart is more difficult. It's the longest task and longest process. It says if we say La ilaha illallah a million times, maybe the heart might say it once with great difficulty. That's how difficult the heart is. That's why it's called qalb, qaf lam ba, qalb. Why? Because it keeps on fluctuating, it keeps on fluctuating. It keeps on. That's why it took such a long effort. See, Abu Jahl, he saw everything. Seeing miracles, seeing events, seeing things take place. Even now, like to many, like when we address many things about incidents of Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, then a mind doesn't effectively take that acceptance readily. To say, look, Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum with their iman walked on the water. And immediately the heart will say, how could that be possible? How could that be possible? Why? Because that recognition is not there with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is only Allah who is the doer. And it's got to be convinced, and it cannot be convinced in any way, but it has to be replenished. فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ ذِكْرًا كَثِيرًا اُذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ ذِكْرًا كَثِيرًا. That's why we have been told to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immensely. It says about my ustad, still Shaykh Maulana Yusuf Mutala sahab, he is the Shaykh in Darul Bari, is related about his father. Now just, you can see from that same person, if you're going to see the son, obviously you're going to get the same reflection of the father. And his father, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him that, the dhikr his father used to do. He relates something. He said, my father's dhikr was immense. He said, when my father used to do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even his limbs were doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And even the walls where he was doing the dhikr, even the walls were doing dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he got blinded. Because one night, he always relates his story. He said, look, my father was so pious, he used to get up at night. That's how you get a very pious child as well. Taqwa, relationship, and those are the ustad that we choose. Depending on the level of your teacher, your iman is going to be strong. We learned the iman from him, so he taught us that iman. Because he learned his iman from his father. He learned his iman from his father. So he said, one night I was sleeping in the bed, and then all of a sudden I went, because in those days, toilets in our homes in Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, outside. So that one night, he said, I had an urge to go to the toilet. So I went out. And at that night I was sleeping with my mother. So as I was sleeping with my mother, she found me missing in the bed and she came looking. So that night my father forgot to latch the door, because when he used to go into his own little room, he used to lock it up so that they don't get interrupted. Because when they do the dhikr of Allah, it's immense. When our Hazrat, he does his dhikr, you can feel the power that's striking your heart when he gets you. And when he talks with something, with an awe. Because the hadith says, إِذَا ذُكِرُوا ذُكِرَ اللَّهِ إِذَا رُؤُوا ذُكِرَ اللَّهِ. When you see these people, it reminds you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His taqwa is immense. Even the Shaykh Maulana Yusuf Mutala, in my time in itself, before we lose the momentum, let's go back. So she went looking for him, and accidentally she opened the door of the room where the dhikr was taking place. And with a great shock, she saw all the walls and everything, his body and everything doing the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he relates that my father, when he used to do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he used to take his eyes out. How Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, these people, how their attachment with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These people were intoxicated. That's why he says, when you do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, اذكروا الله حتى يقول الناس مجنون. Do the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in such a way that people call you insane. Like you're saying that, how could that be possible? This is crazy. But this is the fact. And And that from that day onwards, because she opened the door and he got distracted, he could not put his eyesight back in, and he got blinded on that occasion. So these were the shirk. Shirk is that filth that needs, it's just like they say, for gold you need a furnace. If you want to mold gold, you have to put it inside the furnace. When you put it inside the furnace and it melts, you can shape it the way you want. And the heart, it needs to be placed inside the furnace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's remembrance. That is why it says, people who do dhikr of this walking and all that, they say this kind of a dhikr, it will not get you anywhere. It will make your heart go more harder. They will, and with all honesty, I've been into Hindu temples, and I tell you, when their Bapus and these people, when they engage their people in the dhikr, or whatever the worship is, they make sure that they come inside only worshipping. And look at our masjids and namaz. Honestly, I've been into churches, synagogues, wherever it is. The respect they have, and especially for the worship, I think we are nowhere near. We would say that, look at us disrespecting the masajid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Disrespecting the Quran. Disrespecting. وَمَنْ يُعَظِّمْ شَعَائِرَ اللَّهِ فَإِنَّهَا مِنْ تَقْوَى الْقُلُوبِ. That those who honor and who respect the signs and the things of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will honor them. We have abased these things, we have deserted the mashaykhs. But there are those mashaykhs, whether they are in the Arabs or Bengalis or Pakistan or Gujarat, these mashaykhs, they were there to purify the hearts. They were the furnaces. But what we have done, we have said that that's a furnace, it's dirty. We looked at the physical thing and we have deserted that. We've left those furnaces, but they were the real furnaces for us. So now the ummah in itself has lost its purification even from the Quran. That's why we don't have the love and attachment for the Quran when we come to listen to it. We want to whiz the words out, even in Salat. Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum. It says about one Sahabi radiallahu ta'ala anhum. These Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum, when they stood motionless. When they engaged themselves, it says about Maulana Shaykh Zakaria, he was an immense person. He was a person that I got crowned and a person to be in his presence, and the 30 days I spent with him, it was amazing that this Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi was. The respect he had, one day our Shaykh was sat there and all the other congregation was sat like this. This was in Darunbari when he came on his first visit. And he was very old, 85, 90, and he could hardly move on his bed. Because on his hands, he would only leave his gloves open to meet with the students only. He said, "Ye mehman Rasul hai, these are guests of Allah, the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It does not suit me that I shake my hands with the guest of Rasul alaihi salatu wasallam with my gloves on." This is the respect he had for the students who were learning Quran and Hadith. And believe me, his hands, when I touched his hands, they were softer than sponge. They were softer than sponge. And on one occasion, he was sat down on the bed, and Hazrat is relating now about him. He said he was on this side, he was talking to somebody. Effectively, we will think that this guy is crazy. He was talking to somebody, communication going on, responding. So Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mudalla Sahab, his student, he asked me, he said, "Hazrat, today we saw something extraordinary." He said, "You were talking to somebody." Hazrat goes, "Yes, that was just Israel there. He came to me just now." And I was asking him, "Is it my time for death or no?" Because I prayed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I want to die in Medina. And I'm still over here in England. And I was asking him, "Have you come to take my life now?" Well, I was saying, he said, No. You will die in Medina Munawwara. Your mitti is written over there. I have just come to meet you, that's all, to say salam to you. And his dhikr and his amal, it reached to such a stage that the honor, the dignity, the respect these mashayikh had, because why? They respected the sha'air Allah, the sha'air Allah. So it says, Bari'um min al-mushrikeen. Shirk is such a defilement that this defilement, it says, Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu's supplication, he used to make, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min an ushrika wa ana a'lamu. That I seek refuge, that I associate something, ascribe something, wa ana a'lamu, and I'm knowing of this. And I do istighfar unknowingly. Wa nastaghfir wa ana la a'lamu. And I do istighfar. That means to say my concentration is not there, my devotion is not there, my attachment is not there. If the attachment is not there, then basically the heart, it says the heart that is devoid from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, its inclination is towards that thing. That is also shirk saghir. It has the wind, it has an attachment, because dhikr, it says the heart, the mind must be completely devoid of everything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is how Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala anhum ajmain, they attained that. They attained that. Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayh, and all these eminent, Imam Shafi rahmatullah alayh, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayh. Look at the status of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh. 90 years he spent in Madinatul Munawwara. 90 years of his age in Madinatul Munawwara. You wouldn't believe it, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahmatullah alayh, whilst in Madinatul Munawwara, not on one occasion did he ride on a camel. He never rode on a donkey. He never stepped higher on a position, anything out of respect for the beloved grave of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. He said it does not behove Ahmad bin Hanbal to lift his feet up above the Rawda of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, whether he was in the vicinity or outside the vicinity. This is the respect they had. Ba-adab, ba-nasib, be-adab, be-nasib. If you have respect, you will gain. I say for everything. For khana, roti, rozi, paisa, everything. Even if it's the smallest thing, if it's a penny coin on the floor, don't kick it. If it's a small piece of paper, pick it up. Jiske upar Allah ka naam hai. Look at masajid, kagazat, papers, on the floor, bin, all these articles that we write on, it's all going in. This is all going in a waste. This is all going in disrespect. That's why we are in a abasement. This is why we are going down. The nose dive is because what we had to give the respect, £5 and £20, we put it in our wallet. Iske par to koi nahi chalta hai, nobody walks on it. MashaAllah, we'll put it up, fold it nicely, stack it away inside the wallet. Jewelry nicely stack away, hide it away, and then put some perfume on. Everything else we give respect, and the thing that should be respected, it's on the floor. Why has the abasement? Somebody asked the Shaykh Zakaria rahmatullah alayh to say, why has the abasement come to the Arab world so much? He responded, he's saying that the Quran has been placed on the floor. That is why they have been placed on the floor. What should have been on the shelves? Should have been on the shelves. They say hadith kahan par hai? Hadith kahan par hai? Where is the hadith for eating 3 times a day? Where is the hadith for eating 5 times a day? There are hadiths about hunger. Nobody asks about that. Har cheez hadith se milte, then we would have tons and tons and tons of books. Adab is something which is taught by adab. There are many etiquettes Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam taught, and he taught, we will not find anything. Somebody asked me the other day, Maulana, somebody read this in a surah or something like that. He said, is there any hadith authenticating this? I said, if that was the same reply I gave to him. I said, if every single thing was authenticated, then it would tell you that eating 3 times a day, you need to find something from the hadith as well. Buying precious stuff should also be from the hadith also. Then find everything from the hadith. I said, shukr mano that Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, He either did something by action, he said something by the tongue, or he remained silent. Silence is to say that, look, I don't want to make it difficult for you. Silence is just like that Sahab, when somebody came and he brought some food. It was a goose or some sort of a meat that was placed. It's like a lizard. Meat of a lizard that was placed on the dastarkhan of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. Now the meat was there. Adat al-Sharif, the habit of Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. When he wanted to eat something, he would take it. He just partake it. If he dislikes something, then obviously as a human nature, we do dislike something. We don't have to like everything. If you don't like aubergine, then it's not something that you're naqadar of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can leave the aubergine if you don't like it. But don't say that I don't like aubergine. So the lizard meat was placed over there. Everybody else was eating. Rasulullah was eating from here and then there. And he left that. And certain Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala said, Rasulullah is not eating from that. So he said, you guys carry on, you carry on. You eat whatever you want. Not pointing out on a specific thing to say, eat this and eat that. He said, maybe his nature was not there, so now the silence is there. Sahaba started eating. He did not say yes or no. So, in that, it means to say that's a middle path, that's a middle course. Where there's a middle course, then basically, وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. Take it and put it to your scholars, to notable people, and put it to that to say, okay, it was a silence there was no negation and there was no affirmation. So it's in between to say, well, do it or not do it, that's fine. There's no accountability. Inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow.